Have you ever felt frustrated, overwhelmed, or stuck wasting time in admin instead of growing, leveraging, and scaling your business? Then this podcast is for you. Welcome to Delegate to Elevate, the podcast that's all about handing off what you don't need to do so you can focus on what you do best. So here's your host, Bonnie Schutz.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Bonnie, your host of Delegate to Elevate and Get Done. And it is my last recording of 2025, and I'm in my Christmassy red because next week is Christmas. Who knows when this will air, even if it's June. Just pretend like it's Christmas with us today. I would like to introduce you to a great new guest who I met through LinkedIn because something pulled me out of my pulled me out of my chair when I read her profile because of what she does. And I thought, oh my goodness gracious, she would be a perfect guest for this podcast. So please say hello to Wendy Sellers.
Hello.
Hello, Wendy. Tell us where you're from again.
I live in St. Pete, Florida.
Oh, boy, I wish I was you. Anywho, I'm a Colorado girl, which is great for Christmas, but the rest of the year I could give or take. Anyway, so Wendy Sellers is known as the HR lady. She's an HR consultant, author, speaker, trainer, mentor, and podcast host who is real, reliable, and realistic. She knows human resources and management. She has been guiding companies with 5 to 5,000 employees for 30 years. Her manager training results in 60% higher employee engagement and 75% lower voluntary turnover, which positively affects the bottom line. Amen. Her mentoring reduces employee issue escalations by 40%. Wonderful. Welcome again to the podcast, Wendy. I'm so happy you accepted my invite.
Yes, thanks for having me.
Yes. And so you and I chatted a little bit before we hit the record button, and I let you know kind of who this podcast seems to be resonating with. But with that in mind, tell us a little bit about like your story. I myself am a second act woman who left corporate and became an entrepreneur. I don't know your whole history, so maybe give it to us and let us know what you do now and who your ideal clients are.
Sure. I did not go to school originally for HR, and I don't know who in their right mind would and be like, oh, yes, let's go to college and get into human resources. Like you'd have to be a little crazy for that. But I earned a master's degree in healthcare administration. I wanted to go into the medical industry and healthcare administration. And once I got there, I was like, oh my goodness, this is so slow. And it's so like difficult to affect positive change. And so I basically ended up in retail management, restaurant management. Then I threw a dart on a map, moved to Florida, and a recruiter offered me a role in a small architectural engineering firm in human resources because I was doing retail and restaurant management, and I always ended up in the people side of it. So that firm kept growing and growing and growing. I was their first HR person. And then I went back to school again and got another master's degree in human resources and then every certification known to man. You know, the thing that I realized is even though like my degrees didn't teach me how to handle people, they equipped me for compliance and critical thinking. Mm-hmm. And nearly 30 years later, I've been doing HR for 30 years in corporate. And then I eventually went out on my own to start my own HR consulting practice, joined some other consultants who weren't in the HR field, but did other things. And then I said, I'm going to go back to doing this for myself. I've trained on a daily basis. I train supervisors, led HR departments. I've been in mergers and acquisitions from, small companies, small startup companies to global companies. And I feel like every day is a new challenge. So most of my time right now is spent training people how to manage and or how to be HR. Many of them are in small businesses that they don't have like somebody to look up to, somebody to look to train them on the floor. So we do it either in person, online, or I speak a lot at conferences across the country as well. And then I launched my own learning management system. And then this past year, I formally launched a mentoring program, even though I've been doing it for years. But, I just really believe that people are the company's greatest asset. And that's why I focus both on compliance and then that human side of HR. And if you get the right manager, you could empower them and the people below them to do the job that they were hired to do. Wouldn't that be
Right.
nice?
Wow. Novel idea. Exactly. Nice. Oh my gosh. No, it seems like we have like similar but different backgrounds. It's like a whole lot of um, portfolio career type things going on with both of us. It sounds like we have that in common with we're sticking to our kind of our core, where yours would be HR, mine would be being an executive assistant. And then seeing where we can go with it in the second act of our lives. It's great. I too am an author and sort of, I guess, a podcast host, speaker. I've been on a couple panels, but I think it's great how much we have in common. And that's probably what attracted me to you also. So I love that. Let's think about, if you don't mind, the professional service provider. Let's say they have a team of 3 or 4, or maybe even less. And maybe it's just a solopreneur, but they know they want to grow, and they've had some experience delegating or outsourcing things in their company, and they realize and they admit it, and they're like, yeah, I suck at delegation, or I suck at handling people's problems or believing people, whatever. What would you say, like, if I said that to you? Because I am technically a team of one with a group of contractors. So if I said I want to grow bigger, but I'm one of my biggest roadblocks and hardest things to deal with is people.
Shocker, right?
I love you guys. I swear I do, you guys. I love you all. Anyway.
It is. It's like,
Yeah,
because
like
we have to
if
be
I
like,
came to you, what would you tell me?
we have to be mind readers, and we're not.
Yes.
And so we really have to, in order to delegate, we really have to communicate, whether it's to a virtual, assistant. I mean, I was using a virtual assistant in the Philippines, but I had to really understand, like, okay, how much time do you have on your plate for me? I needed to communicate when the deadlines were. And so if I needed something urgent, I might need to pay a little bit more, but I also might need to have a few people involved versus, hey, this is not an urgent task, but I do need a deadline of, 3 weeks from now. And then, really asking the individual, whoever it is you delegate to, whether they're internal or external, letting them know, what does the finished result look like? Is it, do you want me to give you a 1-page report, 17-page report? Do you want it in a PDF? Do you want it in a PowerPoint? Do you want it to be fancy? Do you want it not to be fancy? Do you want it in English? Do you want it in Spanish? What do you want it in?
Right.
And so it's all about getting those details right. If we, the delegator, get the details as right as possible in the beginning, then the other person who we're shoving the information down to, they can get it right. They can ask more questions. But other than that, it's going to be, them making assumptions, us making assumptions. And you know what assumptions get you,
Yes,
right?
we do. They make a big old ass out of all of us, right?
Yeah, exactly. And,
Oh my
but
gosh.
I'm
Yeah.
reading like a statistic here that says 82% of leaders report feeling tired and burnt out. And that's why delegating is so important. However, many of them get exhausted by delegating because they're like, I just have all the facts in my head and I don't know how to get it out. And it's like,
Right.
well, as I say in my book, you might be part of the problem. Grab a mirror. If you're trying to delegate, you got to get the facts out there, the deadlines, the breaking
And be
down
open
projects.
and receptive to the help, because I find that in my business a lot of times they're not open to the help. They know they need it and they kind of, quote unquote, want it, but
Yeah.
then they get in there and then they aren't receptive to it. Like they're like, they start to explain it and then they'll be like, I'll just do it myself.
Yeah. And then they
Yeah.
also might feel, many leaders feel like if they're delegating, even though they want it over here, their brain over here says, oh, I'm no longer in control. So there's like the loss of control. Other people on the empathetic side might say, well, there's a fear of burdening others. I don't want to burden those people. I
Right.
don't want to overwhelm their team because I don't want them to walk out the door. And a lot of the teams are like, hey, that's what I'm here for. Give it to me because I'm kind of sitting here bored out of my mind. And
Right.
then let's face it, Bonnie, there just might be a lack of trust, right?
Absolutely. I always say, and everybody that listens to this knows, I probably say it on every episode. It's that whole trust but verify is a way that I look at things. I first trust myself that I have selected a team member that I've done my due diligence and research on them. I've talked to their references, that kind of thing. Trust myself first, and then give them trust that I also can convey exactly what I need with clarity, with good communication, and with an open door. If you don't understand something, feel free to ask lots of questions. I encourage questions constantly.
Right.
you
And
know
letting the person that you delegate to, again, internal and external, let them know what, a 5-star project result looks like.
yeah
How
yeah
you're telling me this wasn't good, but yeah, that wasn't good. What the heck does
what
that
good
mean?
look like.
Yeah, what does good look like? What does okay look like? What does
Oh
good enough look like
yeah
for this project? But it has to be, 5-star for that project. And so,
yeah
we really have to, again, grab that mirror and say, you know what, I think I'm part of the problem because I didn't define the project well enough. I didn't define what the results would look like.
Ooh,
And then I'm mad at the employee for that, or in some cases,
right,
the
like, why didn't
contractor.
you read my mind? Which was been one of my biggest complaints as an EA. And probably my team feels this these days, but was the whole thing, the biggest struggle in that career of my or portion of my life in my career was being a mind reader. And so more and more in this second act of my life, I over, over communicate, especially in the remote world.
Yeah.
You just
Ev-
kind of really get that clarity out there and be the open door and accept um, not perfect work, because not everybody can be perfect until you work with them for a little while and they get
Yeah,
to know you. They
it
know your
really is.
vision. Yeah. Is it important to share your vision with people? Like, here's your goal,
Absolutely.
your
I
vision.
mean,
Yeah.
all the way down to the vision to that project or that
Yeah.
task.
Yeah.
If
What's the
you,
goal?
and I talk a lot about, and I teach a lot about personality styles and personality traits.
Okay.
And,
Yeah.
certain personality styles are incredibly detail oriented. And I'm not one of those. And, it's like, okay, well, if you're delegating to an incredibly detail oriented person, but you didn't want it to be a detailed task, you're like, yeah, I just kind of need a summary here. Well, you need to tell them that, or they're
Yeah.
going to work on this for 6 hours and you only wanted them to work on it for 1 hour. So,
Maybe that's a good interview question. Are you a very detailed person? Or are you more like visionary and high level summarizer?
absolutely. And then, even doing a personality assessment, I myself do, I'm certified in DISC, which is a
Okay.
derivative of Myers-Briggs, to
Yep.
find out, like, okay, and I just want to also say, anybody, regardless of their personality style or their personality trait, can be
Sure.
a good employee. They may
Right.
just have to learn to adjust. But, we are the ones that really need to learn to adjust. Don't
Yeah.
go pointing the finger at the employee or the contractor,
Right.
because if you weren't giving clear directions, timelines, scorecards, asking better questions, and then, especially if it's the first time you ever
Yeah.
delegated to that
Right.
person. Okay, you're thinking, all right, it takes me 8 hours to do that task. Well, yeah, but you've been doing it for 17 years. Let's give that person a little bit more room and maybe double the time, or give them 12 hours the first time they do it. So then they can learn and screw up. With
Right.
mistakes, we learn. And so,
Yes.
so many entrepreneurs, heck, so many managers in all businesses, they flip out when people make mistakes. But you know what? That's how we've all learned. And so we
Yes.
have to learn to give them a little grace and a little bit more time to
Little
screw up.
feedback,
Yeah, to screw
little
up and
positive
say,
feedback
yeah,
that
I screwed up, but I don't ever want to feel like that again. So next time I'm going to ask for, the specific deadline, the tool, the results that
yes.
you want, the
Like, I
KPIs, the
feel
key
like I've
performance
turned into a
indicators.
communications major in being an entrepreneur is because I'm constantly not telling, requesting of my team to do something differently, communicate it better, ask more questions, give more clarity. I have this 7 C's of successful delegation. The first one is clarity. I'm looking to the side here, everybody, because I can't remember them all. Um, clarity, communication are the top two. Creativity, collaboration, confidence, commitment, and consistency. And that just like nailed it for me when I chat GPT and I came up with that.
Well, that's the other thing. Even just speaking of AI, I was just on an AI panel the other day, twice this past month, and all the entrepreneurs and the people that are techie and everything, AI is going to take over the world. And I
Yeah.
had to say, well, not really when it comes to HR. It's going to help us, and it's going to help us
Sure.
clarify our communication, but we still are working with humans. Even if those humans are using robots to get their job done, we still need to communicate and realize that they're probably going to need a little bit more time than we have, or
Yeah.
that we do the task in. And also, as an entrepreneur, or even if you're a CEO of 5,000 person company, your passion and dedication is probably not going to be the same as theirs. It may just be a job, or
Yeah.
could be a career, but they're like, yep, my career ends at 5 o'clock because I got a family to take care of.
Very
Versus
true.
you might work late because you get a $40,000 bonus and I don't. So we
Yeah.
have to be empathetic, we have to be realistic, we have to be real, and we
Yeah.
have to really put ourselves in other people's shoes and let them know, like, hey, I know this is your first time doing this for me. We're going to give you a little bit of grace to
Yeah.
screw up, basically.
Exactly. But you know what I like to do too is if somebody's done something for the first time for me, or I've done something for the first time for somebody, it's like, here's my best effort. Here's what I give you. Well, then I'll like, I always start with something positive, and I'm not fake about it. Like, your font is beautiful. But the structure of the paragraph doesn't read well to me. You may have chat GPT'd that and it just doesn't sound like human. You give them feedback and say, would you do me a favor and try to, fix that up a little bit? It's all in the delivery. And I talk about delivery a lot
Yeah,
because how that can be misconstrued in the way you speak, the way you look at them, the way you deliver it can be how they're going to either receive it or badly or well or understandingly, however it may be. I mean, would you agree with me on that?
absolutely. I mean, the facts are most employees are not even engaged at work. Only 23%, and that's a high count,
Yeah.
based on this one study I'm looking at, are engaged at work. So if you're talking down to them or always ripping them a new one, guess what? They're going to be even less engaged, which means they're not going to go the extra mile and look something
Right.
up. They're going to be like, here you go, you're getting this, and I'm going to be looking for a new job in the meantime.
I was the oh God, it's 5 o'clock. Goodbye.
I
person.
wish. I'm trying to get there.
That was a was in there. Did you hear the was? You go into entrepreneurship is a little harder to do that, but I'm very proud to say that I have really worked on my boundaries because I didn't choose to do this to sit there, and work 15-hour days anymore. It's hard not to be, but because of what I talk about every day and delegate, I have to practice what I preach and give things to my team that maybe I could do faster, better, whatever. But have that trust that I don't need to be doing this right now. And you started this business, Bonnie, so that you could have more freedom. So
Yeah.
take it,
So
nip
even
it.
if you can do it, you, the entrepreneur, the executive, the
Even the
manager,
CEO,
can do
yeah.
it. Even if you can do it better, that doesn't mean that is what you should be doing. Somebody else, sometimes we do have to say, like, okay, it's just a memo or an email that's going out. I would
Yeah.
have wrote it this way. Who cares?
Yeah.
It's good
Did it
enough.
get the message across? Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And maybe it's actually better the way somebody else wrote it, even though you don't like it. How about ask feedback to the people receiving it? How
Oh, I
about,
like that.
asking
Yeah.
for feedback from your customers, your clients, your internal team to say, hey, I would have sent this out. My assistant or whoever I delegate has sent it out. Doesn't matter. You got the same message. Okay, cool.
Good. Can I tell you a funny one in mind? We all have our little things. And I had somebody that used to work for me who would send out an email on my behalf. And I was so buckled up corporate for so many years that I wrote so professionally, and she would write an email that if they would say, hey, Bob, such a number, and then she'd go on. And I'd be like, and I would just cringe because of the teachings of what I learned. You never say hey and be so casual in an email. So I would get angry at her because she put the word hey in there.
Yeah.
And as I listen to you and think back, I'm like, how stupid. Times are changing. She's
Times
younger
are
than
changing.
younger than me. She's, her generation will get it better than mine. Who cares if she says hey? And I still cringe a bit when I read somebody else saying that to me because then I feel a little disrespected. And some of those old things you can't get rid of. But I am, doing the breath work and doing the soul searching. Like, gosh dang it, Bonnie, it's not a big deal that they put hey instead of good afternoon, Bob. Like I would.
Right.
That's just always a result, and that's that intergenerational. How much do you know about like how we can be better at the intergenerational type work
Oh
togethers.
my goodness, I used to be obsessed with doing generational training,
Ooh, I
and
love it.
I still do it as well. The bottom line is, yes, you need to get to understand who's on your team, the different generations, different personality styles, and just who they are as a human being. So,
Right.
reading books, doing assessments, whatever it is, doing online training. I have a LMS program that has all that information in it. And so, it's really about getting to know the people on your team and saying, all right, this person likes these type of projects, and when I give them this project, they roll their eyes. Well, you either hired the wrong person, or you hired somebody and then you change the game, right? You change the job duties. And
Yeah,
so
sometimes it's on you. Yeah.
it's always on
Mostly.
management. It's always on
Yeah.
management. I
Yeah.
mean,
Oh, I changed my
everything,
mind.
it
Yeah.
goes up to somewhere, but we have to get to know our teams and what their strengths are.
Yeah.
And even if your team is including an independent contractor, or an outsourced, like executive assistant company as well,
Yeah.
and just letting them know, like, hey, this is the reason why I'm giving you this. I can do it. I don't have the time. This is the reason I'm giving you
I
this.
like
This is
that.
what I need out of it. And either saying, figure it out, or give me a proposal of how you're going to do it, or this is the way I want to do it. And
Yeah.
if you want it done in a very specific way, then you got to take the time to lay out, the structure, the scorecard, for lack of better words.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is the process, and this is the way it needs to be done. Because in some organizations, things do have to be done A, B, C, D,
Right.
E, especially if they have, medical, healthcare, food
Yes.
safety, anything like that.
Mhm.
There has to be a way that it has to be done. And so that means you need to stop and train them before you just throw that at them and say,
Yeah.
figure it out. And then you're mad at them later because they couldn't figure it
And
out.
don't bring them on if you can't find the time to train them
Yeah.
or get to know them and have them really, sit in on some of your meetings if they're supporting you that way, or, let them learn your vision, give them time to train and read about you. All
Right.
these things are kind of things that I've just had to learn. Like, I'm not an HR professional. I do recruit. So I do recruiting for W-2 positions for administrative professionals. So there's a little bit of recruiting head in me, but there's no HR lady. Not throwing out my F bombs and all that, I could get in trouble for that one. Uh, but yeah, no, it is like so cool to talk to somebody that understands people like you do,
Thank
because
you.
ooh, people are different and generations are different, and the expectations are not always super clear. But if you empower both the manager and the employee or contractor to ask questions, assert in a nice way themselves, like, I understood you to say this, but now you're changing your mind. You're telling me this. Which way would you like to go? And it's again all in the delivery. This is what I talk about all the time, and make it nice, or else you're asking for a fight.
Yep.
Or you're asking to be
And you're
let
also
go.
asking for an unengaged worker who
Yeah,
is like, okay, I'm just going to do the bare minimum while I look for
yeah,
another job, or I'm going to do the bare minimum while I take this paycheck, but I'm not going to go the extra mile because this person's a jerk.
yeah. They don't give a shit about me. Yeah. They just,
Right.
there's task takers, and then there's, strategic people to help you, depending on what you are. If you're a task taker, you can be the 9 to 5 or clocking out at 5, get out. But if you are in a position like you're a marketing company helping somebody like me, like, and if I'm investing like what I could buy a car with into your company, there's a lot higher expectations, but it's also an expectation I feel on myself because I've made that like monetary investment to really explain myself clearly what I need and not feel bad. I think women in particular, maybe even of a certain age, you are a little, maybe a little less or a little more apprehensive to assert what their needs and wants and things. I don't know. Is that truthful? Am I saying
Yeah,
the
I,
right
I,
thing?
I definitely would say, I mean, if, we've been held down in society, regardless of your gender orientation, if you've been held down in your jobs in the past and now
Yeah.
you're in charge, you may be hesitant to go from a doer to a delegator because you don't
Yeah.
want that person to feel the way you did. But
Whew,
it,
I can
it goes
relate to that.
yeah, it goes back to the delivery and
Yeah.
really taking the time out up front of saying, here's the project, this is what I need done, and hiring the right person too.
Yes.
When you're a small business, you don't always even have anybody on your team, but you've got to find the right external person to delegate it to and become a partner and treating them well as well. I mentioned before just about like, burnout. Everybody's burnt out at this point in time,
Yeah.
but women are definitely more burnt out as well. And as we're burnt out, we either do one of two things. We dump everything on somebody else, or we take even more on because we see that our team's burnt out. And so it's like you're not delegating, but then, or you're delegating the wrong thing because you're trying to make it easy on that person. And I've done that too, that I'm like, oh, I don't want to put this on them. And I'm like, well, isn't that what they're there for? Let's just have a conversation of like, hey, what's on your plate? Because I have this that's way more important, but I need to know what's on your plate. And they may say, well, I'm doing things just to get things done, but these don't have a deadline. So give me something
a deadline.
that's important.
Yeah, I'm going to become knocking on your virtual door here in a few days. My clients do this to me. That is so true. Gosh. And it plays back to be approachable, don't make people feel like they can't come to you with their questions, concerns, and issues of not being able to read your mind. Like, if you've hired the right people or consulted with the right people, they'll be able to feel your vibe. But boy, did that hit home with me when you said, I started my company because I wanted to build a company that I would have wanted to work for. So I definitely resonate with that because I tend to treat people, hopefully, the way I would have wanted been treated because of all the scars that I had from my corporate days. And I didn't want to be like that with anybody. But then comes the days that you have to let somebody go. And then I'm like, oh, I'm going to just text you because I don't want to talk to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's so many benefits of delegation, of saving time, of somebody whose role, I don't want to say is more important, but is much more valuable to the company. Especially if you're on an executive level of a small business, if your role is to deal with the clients and to get clients, then you need to be, delegating the other things. Otherwise, none of you are going to have jobs to do, right? And then you finally get to do the job that you're paid to do, either paying yourself and making sure that there is a company to come back to, on Monday. But then there's so many disadvantages of delegation too, as we've already said, and it does go back to communication and training, which is that the quality of the work can dip because you have a standard up here, but maybe your standard is a little ridiculous, right?
Right. Well, can I flip that and tell you, like, I've realized that sometimes I've seen people over delegate or bring in too many people. And then as a business owner, they're not making any profit because they're like, oh, I want this freedom. I want to be on the beach and I'm going to do, but then your money is going out the door and you're not making anything. You're not going to be on the beach because you can overhire. I think, I don't know. I've noticed that like I mentioned, I had to let a few people go or step down from higher roles. And that was hard for me to do. But there is such thing as over hiring or over delegating.
Yeah, there absolutely is. And then there's also the biggest thing that I see is not over hiring, but they hired the right amount of people, but they didn't take the time to train them. They just said, we're going to wing it and we're going to figure it out together. And not everybody's going to figure it out because in your head, you're like, why aren't you getting this? And it's like, well, because you've been doing this for 20 years. I've been doing this for 20 minutes or even 20 days. And you're using terminology that I don't even know what the heck you're talking about. So if you're listening and you're just starting out a small business and you're thinking about hiring a team, internal or external, I really want you to slow down and just get their job duties right and then do some kind of like, terminology training. And you could use AI to help you with that. You could totally use AI to help you with that, to say, what's all the terminology in my industry that when I'm saying it and I'm seeing these people in the meetings and their eyes are going in the back of the head and they're going, I have no clue what you're talking about.
What the hell does that acronym mean?
Right. But most people, I would say most people, especially if they're new into the role and they need that money to pay their bills, they may not go, hey, I don't know what the heck you're talking about. They may just go, all right, I'm just winging it because he or she doesn't
to them that I know everything. Yeah.
Right. Or they don't seem to care that I don't know it. So why should I care?
Oof. I'm gonna tell everybody they need to put a pin in this episode because I have these things I call golden nuggets on each episode. And it's kind of like your mic drop moments or your tips and tricks and lessons learned through our conversation. And this one is really close to the top of my list. I know that it helps me a lot. Do you have any kind of roadmaps or things that you offer for people, when they're hiring and doing those kind of things?
Well, the number one thing I would say is getting the job description right. And so we need to have in the job description, it needs to be specific to that person. And also the thing that I talk about in both of my books, my one book's Suck It Up, Buttercup, Be a Leader, People Will Follow. And then my second book is about dealing with crappy leaders and jerks at work. And
Go ahead and tell me the title of that book.
The Whisperer, How to Deal with Crappy Leaders and Jerks at Work.
Oh my God, go ahead.
So I talk about, company values a lot. And in the second book about crappy leaders, I teach people how to create a set of company values. And I think they're very important because they're usually behavioral words like trust and respect and professionalism and, going the extra mile, whatever your company values are. But I tell everybody, put them in your job descriptions. So your job descriptions will have, what you're going to do, the essential duties, non-essential duties, knowledge, skills, and abilities that are required. But then also you are expected to behave in this manner. According to these company values, because when my phone rings all day, every day, it's usually because somebody's acting a fool and that my client is like, I don't know what to do. And I'm like, company values, point to it. It's on the wall. It's in the handbook. It's in their job description. And then
it's in the little plaque you ordered for them on Etsy and has.
And then in the job description, I turn that into a scorecard for interviews, feedback, performance reviews.
Awesome.
And then it makes it very clear, like, hey, this is what you're lacking, or this is what we need you to work on. And then anybody in a supervisor or up role, they need to learn how to communicate, which covers a lot. I mean, you could be doing communication training forever because it's not just about the words coming out of your mouth.
Right.
It's learning about, like we said, personality styles, generation, personality traits, so much. But then they need to learn how to coach. They need to learn how to mentor, and they need to learn how to really focus on trust building and to grab that mirror and say, you know what, I'm being a jerk right now and I need to walk away. And I need to give that person some grace because I'm expecting this. And we really just need a little bit less than that.
Ugh. Love it, love it, love it. Wow, golden mic drop nuggets all over the place, everybody. What a lovely Christmas episode for me. We were talking about this is my last episode of the year, her last meeting of the year. So thank you for wrapping out my 2025 today and for sharing so much great information. I'm so glad I saw you on LinkedIn and connected.
Absolutely.
I will share every link she gives me, all the books and all the freebies and whatever she has. And I will share that in the notes comment section down below on YouTube and all the other podcast channels. So thanks again, Wendy, and everybody else. Get out there, delegate, elevate, get some done, but do it nice. Deliver it kindly, respectful, realistic, and reliable. And, be just like Wendy. Have a great day, everybody.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
So that's it for today's episode of Delegate to Elevate. Head on over to Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen and subscribe to the show. One lucky listener every single week that posts a review on Apple Podcasts or iTunes will win a chance in the grand prize drawing to win a $15,000 private VIP day with Bonnie herself. Be sure to head on over to delegatetoelevatepodcast.com. That's with the number 2. And pick up a free copy of Bonnie's gift and join us on the next episode.